Disorder Hope Google Hangouts. We are so excited that you've taken time out of your day to join us. And my name is Crystal. I am the Special Projects Coordinator for Eating Disorder Hope. And I am joined today by the lovely Jacquelyn Ekern, who is the founder and president of Eating Disorder Hope. And we're here today to just discuss a little bit about our personal journeys in recovery from an eating disorder. And Jacquelyn and I are both ourselves in recovery and just excited to be here with you to share a little bit about our journeys and also just to encourage you and give you a little bit of hope in your walk, because we both understand how difficult this journey can be at times, and we don't want you to feel alone. We want you to find hope and a community here that you can be a part of as you walk your own recovery. So let's get started, and I want to start by asking you, Jacquelyn, if you could just maybe share a little bit with us about what you think led to the development of your eating disorder, and we just love to hear some of your insight as well as a little bit about your journey.
Thank you, Crystal. So I would say that my eating disorder began from a host of different things. First, there were some environmental issues. Well, no, actually, sorry about that. First, there were some genetic issues. My personality style runs towards perfectionism. I'm pretty anxious naturally, and even a little bit lean towards depression. So I think I brought that nature into this world. Also, very needing of validation and approval from others, almost everybody I needed to be approved by. So I was pretty sensitive. So I brought that kind of personality to the table. And then I think growing up environmentally, I was exposed to a lot of imagery by the media and just society in general that the thinner you were, the more glamorous you were, the more powerful, the more lovable, the more likely you were to succeed. And I took that in really deeply. And I think those two factors were really strong. And then maybe the third component that was just as strong would be some trauma that I endured as a child that I wasn't able to process very well, and it haunted me, and I needed some way to express that pain and confusion from that experience. And the eating disorder was sort of the answer to this perfect storm of my biological predisposition, my personality, the environment I was in, and then some trauma. How about you, Crystal?
Thanks for sharing, Jacquelyn. I can definitely relate to many of the same things that you have shared, but I definitely understand it more now to be the genetic part that made me susceptible to developing anorexia. And thanks to the amazing research that's been coming out now, we now know that eating disorders are strongly related to our neurobiology and our genetics. And so I definitely think my genetic makeup made me susceptible to developing anorexia. But there was definitely environmental issues too, and also just my personality and how you were saying, similar with you, Jacquelyn, that I am just very prone to perfectionistic thinking, very black and white thinking. Also just a very strong people pleaser, and that's how I gained approval and validation, was if I felt accepted from other people in that way. Also just really driven, and in high school I ran cross country, and for me that was a way to gain acceptance and approval because it was something that I was good at, and I kind of just took it to the extreme, and that's kind of how things started, and it just kind of progressed from there. But I definitely felt a sense of control. Having anorexia was such a horrible disease. It is such a horrible disease, but for the person who's suffering, I know for me, it became a sense of having control in an environment that I felt very out of control in. So that's kind of a little bit about my story, and I know it's kind of similar to yours, Jacquelyn. And just kind of thinking back on your eating disorder, what would you say was the lowest point of your eating disorder? I know that can be really hard to go back into and think about, but I know that many of our viewers could likely relate to some of the things that you and I have struggled with.
Thanks. So my eating disorder was kind of across the spectrum of disordered eating, but I largely struggled with bulimic behaviors. And so I would say some of the lowest points were lying on a bathroom floor after purging and being so sick and feeling so hopeless and ashamed and despairing. And then also the day I went into treatment, I went to a 30-day treatment program, and I just felt completely hopeless at that point, just as if life as I knew it was ending and completely out of control, and had no idea what was going to come out of the end of this treatment experience, if I'd even know myself. But I was desperate enough to try. And it actually ended up being the start of a really good walk in recovery and a much stronger, healthier sense of myself and my life, free of bulimia. What would you say were some of your darker moments with your struggle with anorexia?
Yeah, I mean, it is really hard to go back in that time, but it's a good reminder of how deadly these diseases are. And there was a couple of times where I had to go into the hospital because I was so sick, and I don't think I really understood the magnitude of how sick I really was until I was in that hospital bed, and the doctors are telling me, you know, like, your heart is really unstable. And as a 17-year-old, to hear that, it's just mind-boggling. Like, you don't even understand what that means. So I think those moments were really shocking, but also really hard too, to just really grasp, you know, how far into the anorexia I'd really gotten. But I really remember too missing out on so many things with my family and with friends, and a lot of my relationships began to crumble slowly because I was so sick I could hardly participate in anything. And I remember it coming down to me possibly not going to college because I was just so medically unstable. And I remember that really freaking me out. Just so many dreams and hopes that I'd had for myself just slowly kind of going down the drain. But like you said, getting down to that dark point and you're just looking up from the bottom up, it's devastating, but it's also the beginning of a journey in healing and recovery. And I think you almost have to get to that point of desperation to really kind of turn around. So I think that kind of were some of the darker moments for me. But in moving forward, how exactly did you recover, Jacquelyn, and what did you do to recover from your eating disorder? I know you talked a little bit about kind of where you were and going into inpatient, but how did you continue in your recovery from bulimia?
Well, the inpatient 30-day program I went into quite a long time ago was really helpful in just interrupting these behaviors. I had become so habitual in my bulimic behavior that I almost couldn't stop on my own. So it was really useful to have that interrupted for 30 days. And then that was the start. Additionally, while I was in treatment, I had some great therapy, some great nutritional guidance, some group support, some sort of psychoeducation about the culture and society and the variances of body weight distributions and how everyone isn't meant to look like the cover of a Sports Illustrated model or something. So that was helpful. And then I would say even more helpful, though, was the 4 years afterward where I worked with a therapist who specialized in eating disorders. On and off, I worked with her. And it was just amazing. It was life-changing work to really look into some of the painful trauma that I had dealt with and resolve some of that, to accept some of these personality traits that I'm genetically inclined toward, and to learn to work with them rather than let them control me in a negative way. And I also had some very valuable input from nutritionists along the way that helped me get a better grasp of what I needed to be healthy and to meet the nutrition needs of my body and to not be so restrictive. I would also say that during that time there were some support groups where when I would slip, and there were lots of slips, it was very much 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and I would go to some groups sometimes just in the community, and they were so helpful, just that people understood what I was going through and had been there and could maybe encourage me. So all of that cumulatively played into my recovery. Maybe the strongest thing was my renewed faith in God, too. I'd always believed in God, but I was so beat up by the eating disorder, and I really didn't see God as an ally for coping. It almost seemed like the eating disorder was my coping skill. And in that process of recovery, transitioning from me and my brain and my thoughts, trying to figure out life, to there's a good God out there that's ultimately in control, and I don't have to be in control of everything. It's really a central shift for me in recovery.
Thanks for sharing, Jacquelyn. I know for myself that it had to start like that too, with the disruption of the anorexic behaviors. Because I was so far gone, I think, that there was no way I could have stopped what I was doing on my own. And so I also had that help and intervention. But really for me, like, I think the first step was just being medically stabilized, and also weight restoration, and having nutritional restoration so that I could think adequately. I mean, really being so malnourished contributed to a lot of my dysfunctional thinking. And so I definitely worked with a team, a dietitian and a counselor. But I think the first step was just being able to stabilize, do weight restoration, and that in itself was really, really challenging. And I think when you're so malnourished and sick, you still don't really understand what's going on, and it's hard to eat the foods that you've been restricting for so long. But ultimately I had to be restored nutritionally and medically, and I also had a long journey and road of counseling and psychotherapy, group support, but all of that is just such a helpful part of the process. And it can be painful at times to process all these things in your life without the crutch of the eating disorder anymore, but it's so therapeutic and so healing, and just learning healthy coping skills and coping mechanisms to get through difficult times really helped me in my recovery, I think. And I think a question that I get sometimes, and I'm sure you do as well, Jacquelyn, but do you consider yourself fully recovered, or do you think it's more of an ongoing process? How would you describe where you are today?
It's an interesting discussion, isn't it? Because there's a lot of different views on recovery, and I honor many different perspectives on that. For me personally, I would say it's an ongoing journey of recovery rather than I am recovered, because there's always growth happening with the way I evaluate myself, the way I deal with some of these personality traits. I still have to work hard to appreciate my body for its functionality, not just what I'm presenting to the world. Overall, though, I would say it's pretty amazing comparatively. I certainly don't struggle with bulimic behaviors anymore. I have been at a comfortable, healthy weight for over, I don't know, 15 years, and I've had a baby. I think that recovery for me, though, is ongoing in that I'll never sort of arrive. I'll always be becoming more integrated emotionally, spiritually, physically. So though I've come a long way, I still aspire to grow more.
That's so great to hear that. And I can definitely attest to that and share the same things, that it's it's an ongoing process. It's something you have to be continually vigilant about, making sure that you're aware of any eating disorder thoughts, and though they might not be as frequent, they can still come, and certain different things in life can trigger those eating disorder thoughts and behaviors. So it's something that I myself am continually aware of, but like you said, I have not been engaging in any type of eating disorder behaviors. I've been able to maintain my healthy weight for quite a few years now, which is an important part of recovery, I think, and making peace with my food and my body, learning to eat intuitively. I think those are all things that become more natural, but you still have to be aware. Recovery is not just something you can keep on the back burner. I think it's something that requires an active diligence. So, yeah, I share that with you as well, Jacquelyn. And I guess that leads me to my next question in talking about recovery is, what advice would you offer to someone who is struggling at this point right now?
I love that question because it's kind of what eating disorder hope's founded on, is helping, taking our experience and using it to hopefully inspire others to find recovery too. And I think whatever stage an individual's at with an eating disorder or just disordered eating overall, it's really helpful to take someone into your confidence and let them know what's going on. If you're a child or a teenager, ideally it would be your parents. They're probably your best allies. If that were not available to you, there's also your school counselor or a coach or even a neighbor that you would trust that you could talk to about this and ask for some help finding some treatment options for yourself. For an adult, I would say, again, share it with someone, share the struggle with someone you love and trust. Ask for their help. And some practical techniques that you could use are to call your insurance company if you're fortunate enough to have insurance and find out who's covered that specializes in eating disorders, that provides nutrition counseling or therapy. And that's a good evaluation point because once you get with a specialist, they can help you determine what's the appropriate level of care. And as many of you know, there's so many levels of care now. There's just outpatient therapy where you might go and meet with a nutritionist and a therapist once or twice a week. There's intensive outpatient where it's stepped up a little bit more. There's partial hospitalization. There's residential, and there's inpatient. So there's this wide spectrum that can be geared to meet your needs. And for a lot of people, I think when they think about going into treatment or getting help, they think, well, I can't stop and interrupt my life. And not everybody has to go do the dramatic 30-day or longer treatment that I did. I know many people that have succeeded in recovery from outpatient therapy or these intensive outpatient programs, which I'm a real proponent of for those it's a good fit for, because it might allow the mom to stay at home with their kids, the student to stay enrolled, somewhat involved in your current life. However, if the person's health is compromised significantly, or they're a danger to themselves or someone else, then inpatient or residential may be the best option. And treatment is always worth it. No matter how despairing you may feel, there are so many amazing professionals out there who can help you recover on the spiritual level, physical, emotional, and regulate your body so that you're back to more normalized eating and exercising and good health. What would you suggest?
Yeah, those are all such great points, Jacquelyn, and I just want to reiterate that a lot of the things that you have said I think there's so many stigmas with eating disorders that unfortunately make people feel as though they can't speak out or they can't talk about their struggles because there is a lot of shame associated with an eating disorder, mostly because they're not fully understood. You know, it's not eating disorders are psychiatric illnesses, but they're still diseases just like cancer or diabetes. And for any disease state, you would want to get the appropriate help that you need. Unfortunately, I think for eating disorders, there is still so much stigma attached to it that it can drive fear in people, fear of speaking out, fear of asking for the help that you need, because there are a lot of uncertainties. And so I would just encourage anyone who is watching this, who's struggling with an eating disorder and not sure what to do, I would encourage you to speak out and talk to someone that you love and trust and get the help you need, because eating disorders can be so tricky and make you think that you're okay, but you're not. They're very scary diseases, and they can escalate really quickly. So I would just encourage you to not stay isolated, to find the help and support you need, and start by talking to someone that you trust. If you're not sure who to talk to, start by speaking out to your best friend or a mentor, a teacher, a counselor, anyone in your life who you can trust and who can help get you to and connect you to the resources that you need. And we do have some great resources on the Eating Disorder Hope website, and I am just putting up some for our visitors and viewers who are watching this video. You can see we have our Eating Disorder Hope. You can find it at eatingdisorderhope.com. We have amazing resources and treatment referrals on our actual website. So I would definitely encourage you to get connected to someone. You can start by searching our website and find someone close to you. We have a great treatment directory. So that's a place that you can start as well. So in closing, Jacquelyn, can you maybe share a little bit with us about what life is like for you now that you have been in recovery for quite a few years now? We'd love to hear a little bit about what you're doing now that you're in recovery.
Thanks. It's, you know, so night and day different than some of my memories of myself when I was so miserable with the eating disorder. But life now is good. It is, you know, I'm healthy, very healthy. I exercise moderately. I eat well. I'm married. I've been married for 13 years. I have been involved with the Eating Disorder Hope website for over 10 years. I'm a licensed professional counselor specializing in eating disorders. I have a son. I have a strong faith in God, and I have optimism. And so life is good. It is sure not perfect, though. It's still really hard at times. And that's just life. Life's a challenge. But now I'm able to endure the ups and downs of life without having to fall into this dysfunctional behavior with an eating disorder. It no longer calls to me like it did. And I just really encourage anyone watching this that no matter what position you're in, things can change. I mean, Crystal alluded to the schooling issue, and that was really difficult for me too. I had so many starts and stops in college and jobs. I mean, it was just, there was a lot of instability during the years when I was really actively engaged in my eating disorder, and I never could have believed I could be the stable, solid person I am now, and that life could be smooth, overall smooth. And if this can happen for me, it can certainly happen for you. So please take anything from these brief chats that we're having here between Crystal and I that will inspire you, and hold on to that and believe in yourself. Believe that recovery can be real for you too, because it absolutely can. Recovery happens all the time. It's happened for Crystal and I, and we are here to support you in your journey of recovery at Eating Disorder Hope.
Thank you, Jacquelyn. That's so encouraging to hear, and I can say the same thing. I mean, there are so many things in my life that I did not think were going to happen for me, and being in recovery has enabled me to live life more fully and to really experience things. And I as well was able to get married, and I have 3 beautiful girls, and I just never thought that would happen for me after everything I put my body through with my eating disorder. But that just shows you how resilient our bodies are, and how they can really function adequately when we care for them and nourish them like we are supposed to. And I was able to go on and finish school. And it did take a while, you know, probably longer than most people, but I think that's part of being in recovery, is going at a pace that you're able to. And I'm now a dietitian, and I have worked with patients who also have eating disorders. And I've been so blessed to be a part of Eating Disorder Hope. And I think that's something about being in recovery, is that it is so defined by hope. There's so much hope for your future, for your life. And that's something that having an eating disorder really strips you of. It strips you of hope. And I think recovery is very much defined by hope. And we just so want to encourage you today, wherever you are, whatever your journey has been, you can find hope and recovery and healing. And we can definitely attest to that from our own journeys in recovery from an eating disorder. And just don't give up. Wherever you are, you can make it. There are people here in this community that love you and care about you. You are deserving of a life in freedom from an eating disorder. And we know it's possible from our own experiences, and we just hope that you can find that as well. And in closing, I just want to point out that we do have a page of inspiring recovery stories on our website, also on the Eating Disorder Hope website. So if you are just needing some more encouragement in your recovery, we have amazing stories from people from all different walks of life, and would love for you to visit our website to check that out. And again, we just want to share with you that there is hope for healing, and we're thankful that you are part of this community. Your life is so valuable and beautiful, and it may be hard to see that in the eating disorder, but just grasp on to the possibility of hope and healing. And we hope that you'll continue to watch our Google Hangouts. We have some great ones coming up, including a Google Hangout with Brian Cuban on March 19th. We're going to be talking about trauma and how it's related to eating disorders. So we hope that you'll join us for that exciting event. And we also have some great tweet chats coming up and some other amazing things in this community, and we're just grateful that you're a part of it. And so from Jacquelyn and I, we just want to thank you again for joining us, and we wish you all the best. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.